Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and another one of the reoccurring themes on this channel is screwdriver handles. I've done tons of videos on them, different kinds, new announcements, made one out of clay just to see stubby screwdriver handles, larger handles, striking handles. Well, TEKTON has a new screwdriver handle, at least new for them, so I thought I better take one for a ride and see what I think. And I'm underwhelmed. TEKTON screwdrivers were never really very far up on my list of screwdrivers. I have tons of different screwdrivers, and I don't think I have a TEKTON. I looked around, I have TEKTON pry bars. I'm a big fan of those. This is their American-made, USA-made handles that, well, in pry bar, that is very similar to what their screwdriver handle was like. So that's as close as I came to a TEKTON screwdriver that I know of. But these are two of the three sizes of TEKTON's new handles. And apparently the whole screwdriver now is not made in America. It is, as you can see, made in Germany. And apparently the company that makes this is WITT, or some people call it W-I-T-T-E. And it's not really, at least according to some of the sources, including Tony the Technician, and I'll link his video. He's got a little bit more in-depth dive into this, this specific handle. And he also says this is very similar to the Matco screwdriver handle, but possibly a lower tier. You can, get it from his video. I don't need to paraphrase him, but I did find it a little interesting in a couple of different ways. Obviously, the geometry or the ergonomics of a screwdriver handle is something I'm interested in. I mean, you've got the simple hand, and it interfaces with the tool through the handle, yet we seem to have all kinds of different ideas as to what the handle should be. And that's in terms of the material, the size, the internal shape, the overall external shape, and then you could get even into the weight distribution and additional features. So when I saw this, I thought, okay, you know what that reminds me of is the old Snap-on Tri-lobe handle. Very similar, almost in size, little different materials there. The external shape does have the same flow. This has got a little bit different flare at the bottom. We'll get to that thing. I don't understand it. But anyway, the tri-lobe actually can fit really well in a hand, and I would say this is more designed for turning than it is for comfort. And then you've got the swell difference. So how big around the major diameter of the screwdriver versus further in, or maybe smaller where you're going to pinch it. And that is, I did a video on I believe it was a Klein screwdriver, in that ratio. Is that a magic ratio to fit into the hand? But tri-lobes do tend to give us, if you look at the bone structure of a human hand, it actually starts way up in the arm, and you've got these two arm bones that basically can do this, which means you can get, a huge rotation. If you just tried it with your wrist, you really can't go that far. So this is really designed for about that much of a turn. And if you measured that, well, it's a little less than half, and a little less than half might be a third, because you don't go to your extreme. So that's where I think the tri-lobe comes in, is it is a natural turning of about 1/3, so you line right back up. Now, if you had a square handle, I guess I didn't bring a Snap-on out, this is close to the square handle, you might not index, so you can either make smaller turns or try to go all the way for that 1/2. This is a small one, it's easier to do that. The tri-lobe here on this old Snap-on was then updated in the Instinct handle here, where you've got that tri-lobe, but then it does go to a round form here, whereas this maintained the tri-lobe all the way to the blade. You can see that it looks like this is, but this turns round, whereas this definitely has 3 flat sides. So that's, to me, a benefit of the Instinct design over the old tri-lobe Snap-on. If you go to some others, well, Knipex here, Knipex actually looks like it's a little bit off round, kind of ovalized, maybe. Just a little bit of swell right there, goes to a complete, or a circle right here. You know, we haven't even gotten into the other stuff that the handles are made of. So this one's round, so you really don't re-index it. Whereas anything with 3 or 4 lobes, you definitely go back to that indexing point. You need to go back to that flat surface. The round ones don't give that to you. Same Weehaw, perfectly round. Obviously PB Swiss, they had their big announcement with their new screwdriver handles. I did a video on that. Again, that's the round choice. You're going to grab it wherever, but no place is any better than anywhere else. So when you go to the Tri-lobe, you can grab it down into your palm, and you can see what shape your palm doesn't make a circle when you turn it into, you know, whatever this shape is. Instead, you're going to get some edges because you have these flat sides of things. See that? And so you grab it, and then sometimes that actually works better than something round. Where you notice that is if you have something that is really hard to turn. Something that's round can actually cause your hand to ache a little bit. Think of a jar lid or something like that, versus trying to grab something that's got some edges to it. So that's just a thought. The small one here, I honestly really don't like this. It doesn't fit well in my hand. It's like way too long, you know, so I'd want to, you know, almost have it cut off about here so I could, you know, easily grab it, because you're not going to generate a huge amount of force up there. It's kind of interesting though. You know, I'm glad they did it, because then I get to play with it and see what I think. Now this thing up here, notice that's a triangle. Can't really grab that with anything, and these are round shafts, no bolster or anything, so no added leverage. But I looked at this thing and thought, was that supposed to be, you know, like a wrench point? That's sure what it looks like. Now the snap-ons, what we ideally want is to be able to throw a box wrench on, you know, and then that stays, and then we get, you know, good sideways leverage. Now some screwdrivers in the old days used to just stick another screwdriver in there, and then that was where your leverage came from. So maybe that's why they've got such a large hole back there. But then I thought, well, does it fit on a blade? It does this way. See that? So I can get a 17 millimeter on here. Nothing fits that is SAE. But when I go to this end, not even close. This thing this plastic piece is way too big. But and that was a 17. If I throw an 18 on here, what do I have? Again, too big. Let me grab a 19 and see. See if I can grab it with that. Nope, now it's spinning inside of it. Is it? Still not. Let me grab a 20. That's crazy. Like you're going to put a 20 millimeter wrench on it. Nope, now that turns fluidly right inside. So it doesn't match up with anything. So I'm not sure what that's for. And then if you throw a 17 on it and try to turn it, look at the clearance. You're just going to probably crush that plastic. So I'm not sure what that's all about. As far as screw grabbing, it's impressive. Here is, this is a T25 deck screw. In fact, that's why I got this. I have plenty of Phillips number 2s, so I'm going to branch out to a few others. But as you can see, you know, it's holding pretty well. Milwaukee, you know, has got a secret sauce, so they really can get something to hold. But, you know, for most things, that's going to hold plenty good. If I just stick this on a bit, regular old bit. Whoops, you didn't see that. Let me turn it with this hand. I can kind of get it to stick on there, probably the paint, but then a little bit of movement and it falls off. So, you know, I've done that test a whole bunch of times, and it just keeps grabbing. So it's doing well. You know, there it is, hanging from the screw. Anyway, that's it for the new TEKTON screwdriver handles.